Let's look at what this character does. If you've never seen this movie, I'm going to spoil everything, okay? If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you do see it, and maybe you might enjoy it a little more, get something more out of it. I mean by enjoy it, after watching this video. So when the movie starts off, this guy is the main character, played by Brad Pitt. He values his family. He's with his family. He possesses homemaking skills. He's cooking breakfast. He's viewed as a source of answers. The daughter asks him about what martial law is, and he has an answer for that. And so he's looked to as a person who knows things by the family. Okay, he's not an incompetent person. You know, a lot of movies paint the dad as somebody who doesn't know what's going on. This movie doesn't do that. One of the things I like about it. He quit his previous job to be with his family more often, so it shows you where his values are. He values his family. He can deal with kids at their level. He can deal with kids about their problems, even though he is trained and equipped to deal with much more serious, large-scale problems. Not that kids' problems aren't serious; they are. He lives very modestly. He's in a regular home. They show him driving a Volvo station wagon, that kind of thing. The wife was apparently not selected for shallow reasons. She appears very ordinary. But she is very functional and decisive without becoming hysterical or panicking when crazy situations start to arise. So it seems one of the words I just taught my kids yesterday, was the word equanimity. Okay, we looked at that and we talked about a bunch of different situations. So one thing we do when I watch a video or a movie with my kids, I try to have them tell me which characters have equanimity and how that played into the plot, on whether the plot went well for that character or not. And when it starts going well for them, is there an equivalent increase in equanimity with that character? Something to think about. So there's some equanimity going on here. And then there's a problem discovery. And you see that this character is curious. He doesn't bury his head in the sand. He doesn't just run. He doesn't panic. He's curious, and you see him looking around trying to see what's going on. He's surprised by a speeding garbage truck that took out a police officer. And as shocking as that is, he immediately has the wherewithal, and this is one of the first huge decisions that he has to make. This garbage truck, there's a cop talking to him in his window, and this garbage truck plows right by and takes out the police officer. Probably kills the police officer. And this truck is plowing this huge thing, and there were just explosions a few minutes ago. So he jumps in the car, guns it, and follows the path the garbage truck is making, because now that is opportune decisiveness, where you jump in and make a decision. That's amazing decisiveness. If you imagine yourself in a real world situation, who would have the wherewithal to see that happen and immediately jump in the car and follow this garbage truck because it's got the only path out of this traffic jam gridlock situation? Okay, so he does that. He seizes the opportunity to escape by closely following a path carved by the garbage truck, and he perceives the relevance of the situation that has likely never happened before and will never likely happen again. He says, this is relevant. I can't get out of here. I probably need to get out of here. There's a clear path. I better take it. So he sees that is relevant to him and his family. There's a child that immediately starts screaming, asking for a blanket. He doesn't get frustrated with the child. Equanimity there. They endure a car accident. Immediately he starts issuing orders. He makes sure everybody's okay. He says, everybody out of the car. He has a plan, and we got to keep moving. He has the presence of mind to observe the disease affect, process, and timing. So what's happening in this movie is this disease is spreading so fast. Everyone's tenaciously being bitten by these, transformed people who are transformed into these zombies. And the process takes about 12 seconds. He counts it. One of the child's toys goes off, and it counts 1, 2, while he's getting away into this. They've picked out, he says, go to the RV. So they're going to this RV, and they're just going to take an RV. That's another issue. And while they're going to the RV, he looks back, and this child's toy is counting up to 12, and it hits 12 and says, trains in the station. That's exactly how long it took for this one character to change into this creature. So he's observing while he's acting in an emergency situation. He has the presence of mind to do that, okay? Now, understand that this is a highly dramatized situation, and that in a real-world scenario, you probably have a little more time than just a few seconds to be able to observe and act at the same time. Let's hope so. So he extemporaneously acquires a working vehicle that is not his. Now, we all know the rules. We don't steal vehicles, right? But he steals a vehicle, and nobody in the audience who's watching the movie is like, oh, he's a car thief. Nobody thinks that, because everybody understands that in this situation, it's just survival. And the people who own that RV are probably already dead anyway. So it's time to act. It's time to do what you can to save who you can. So he does that. He extemporaneously acquires a working vehicle that's not his. And it's one of many examples of him doing something that's wrong, that is right that's wrong in the chronos, that is right for the kairos. And as a Christian, there are times when you do something that's considered wrong in the chronos that is right for a particular kairos, not just a society-wide kairos like we're in now, but there might be one in your church, for example. And when that kairos happens, you have to take unprecedented actions for which there is no rule book. And then people are going to be split on whether or not you did the right thing. But you got to choose. You got to make a decision. And inaction is inaction. It is a decision. While this is going on, the wife effectively fights off aggressors without panicking. She has the wherewithal to brace herself against the other side of the vehicle and kick some of these infected people out of the window with her feet. You know, she can still act. She still has agency, and she's not panicking to where she can't be of any value. So also, the people don't become so preoccupied with the novelty that they can't make effective decisions. I mean, imagine you're in a city where you're surrounded by this happening. The novelty being something so new that you've never seen before that you just collapse and don't know what to do. They're not doing that. They're making effective decisions in the midst of this absolute chaos. So the main character deals with a child with asthma in a tender, focused, and appropriate way. And so it's interesting how they show the main character talking to people. He talks to strangers that are adults. He talks to, military commanders. He talks to combat trained men with whom he has to ask to sacrifice themselves. And he addresses each situation forthrightly and directly. And I think it's interesting that they show you a spectrum of different people that he can deal directly with. He can deal with anybody from children to zombies, to military commanders, to highly trained military commandos in a very forthright, frank, and effective way, assertively as well. And I think that's a pretty good characteristic of somebody who is transformed, to be able to deal with a wide variety of people. As they're getting ready to go to the apartment complex, they're in a grocery store and all kinds of stuff happens, and the main character, Jerry, has to shoot somebody, and a police officer comes up, and Jerry puts his hands up, but the police officer runs right by this open shooting. But what that shows is that all normal functions have been suspended. And you have to realize that when you're in a kairos situation in your life, in your church, state, society, whatever it is, at whatever level that it occurs, that when you're in a kairos situation, there is a time when all normal functions are suspended, and you have to act in the suspension of normal functions. And sometimes you have to act in the suspension of normal rules as well, where you have to break away from the letter of the law and look at the intent and figure out how to accomplish the intent, the spiritual intent, or the aim or the goal, regardless of what the letter of the law does or doesn't say, because there is a point where it is not applicable. There is a point when it is not applicable. Yeah, I said that twice on purpose, okay? And you have to get that.